All right. There is still another category that I don't want to just touch on this morning. I'm going to look into it deep this morning because it's quite a big subject. But just in case you've never thought about this before, you're unaware of this doctrine. There's a doctrine, some people say that this baptism with the Spirit is entire sanctification. Anyone never heard of that doctrine before? Yeah? Entire sanctification is based on 1 Thessalonians 5:23. Paul says, I pray that you be wholly sanctified or entirely sanctified. And it's a view that was, it's a doctrine, entire sanctification, that was taught by people like John and Charles Wesley, Charles Finney, William Booth, Hudson Taylor, who was a famous missionary to China, believed in entire sanctification, sought entire sanctification, and if you read his biography, Growth of a Soul, in a private letter, he was never meant to be published, in a private letter to his sister, he says, I have received entire sanctification. He claims to have been entirely sanctified. This is the man who started the China Inland Mission. You find out about him. If you Google his name, you find he's quite an important historical figure. But he did believe that it was a legitimate biblical doctrine. And I was amazed when I first started hearing about it. I thought, I've never heard of this before. What is this? But you go back about 100 years, it's quite a common doctrine. It's in the foundational doctrines of the Salvation Army. The biggest section in there is on sanctification. It talks about entire sanctification. Leonard Ravenhill, you heard of him? He does a biography on John Wesley, and he talks about entire sanctification. And he says, and Ravenhill says, it's the second blessing. Okay, so it is a doctrine that Christians have believed. It's just not so popular in our day. It just seems to have just gone by the wayside. You've got to dig around to find this particular doctrine. Do they? Yeah, Nazarene still teach it, do they? Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know any Nazarene that would say that, but there you go. Well, this is the thing. Sometimes it's taught in their colleges, maybe. Yeah, they teach it in their foundational doctrines. Do they teach it from the pulpit, though? Or do they try and lead people into it? That's the question. So, entire sanctification, sometimes called the second blessing. I believe that it is a legitimate Christian doctrine. And I believe that it is the privilege of all believers to be entirely sanctified. But I believe depends if you want it and whether you accept it or not. I'll leave that with you. Go and study the Word of God. Go and see whether the Bible does indeed teach that or whether it doesn't.